Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Romans Creative Academy. I'm Mike.
And I'm Jay.
So today what we're going to be going over is the new trendy hot topic, SOPs or standard operating procedures. This is something that every business for the longest time ever has been doing. It's just something that's been brought to light more. And what we really wanted to go over today is how SOPs or standard operating procedures have helped excel our business, have helped us with delegation, and then we're going to go over some of the do's and the don'ts when it comes to SOPs and how to implement them in your business.
So we've talked about this previously in another one of our episodes, but we bring it up again because we have a lot of questions coming up, right? And if you're like me, I love SOPs, but someone in this room, I'm not going to name them, has a love-hate relationship with them. And basically, if you are an unorganized person, SOPs can be your favorite thing in the world, or you can absolutely hate them, or have a mixture, because it keeps you accountable. So I have to say that. One of the questions, and I'm just going to dive right into it, is what made us start SOPs, right? Initially, what was that thing that pushed us to start standardized operating procedures, right? And that is simply our rental portfolio. We wanted to scale. We knew we wanted to scale at a fast pace, but we weren't at the beginning. And trying to remember the steps on what to do when we close on a property was really taunting for us, right?
Absolutely. Not only is it from like when you close on a property throughout the transaction, but once you do, depending on where the home is. So to give you some insight, we buy all over the state of Pennsylvania. Every county, every city, every borough has different qualifications, different things needed, not only for you to close and buy on it, but also to have a tenant in place. So, for example, here in Philly, there's like a 6-step process just to get a tenant in place. Never mind all the things that it takes to get it across the finish line, right? So, in order for us to make sure we didn't miss steps, these were things that we had to put in place just for Jay and myself in order to make sure that we were doing everything properly and kosher, right? On top of that, though, as we start to grow, as we get bigger, and we get into different parts of the business, the smaller things like filling out some forms, all that stuff, and where they can all be found are things that we can delegate to somebody else. But in order for us to delegate, they're going to need to know what they need, where to find it, how to do it, etc. And how do you do that? That's what SOPs.
Yep, and then another thing is that whether Mike's doing the task or I'm doing the task, we need to do it in a standardized way, right? And what do I mean by that? We create checkpoints. So, checkpoints as in this gets done at this time in the process, this exact same way each time, right? So that if anything is absolutely missed by either Mike, myself, we can ask, okay, why was it missed and how can we mitigate that from happening moving forward, right? So SOPs isn't just writing down. I want to kind of debunk this idea that SOPs is just a list or a document that kind of goes through the process. It is so much more than that. It is videos. It is, you can create forms. It is, what calculators to use when. It's that whole process standardized so that it's done the exact same way each time, no matter who you put in that seat or in that role, right? And Mike alluded to, we also use them when we hire. So the onboarding process, that's kind of a form of SOP in hindsight, because when you step back and you think, okay, what's the standardized process of how we onboard someone, right? Is that, do we send them emails, or do we have a course laid out for them to walk through? What does that look like in your company so that onboarding is done the exact same way for all of your new hires or all of your teammates, or when a contractor goes in and there's turnover, or a handyman? What are those standard things No questions asked that when a tenant moves out needs to get done. And I can't stress this enough because that decision making that you have to do, and you have to, tell someone, okay, you're going to do this and that. Well, why not standardize that and say, hey, I don't need to think about it. Here's the checklist. These need to get done each time someone leaves our property.
And when it comes down to hiring, right? We hired our first VA about a year ago, give or take, maybe a little bit more. And the first time that we hired her, yes, we had never hired a VA before, but we had an idea on what it was that we were going to do, how we were going to onboard her, and we had a basic blueprint. From there, everything that we did, we documented it from start to finish, and then we tweaked it as we went along the way. Now, about 2 months ago, we hired our second VA. They're both full time. And that process of onboarding her was like a piece of cake because we had the SOP and we had the whole process down from the first time we went through it because we documented it all to the point where she was fully ready to go on the floor, quote unquote, as we call it, meaning live and talking with sellers, in about 2.5 weeks' time. So it not only told us what forms, what emails, what opening emails that need to get sent to bring her on the team, but also what's the training process? What are the checkpoints on the first week basis that we need to hit? The second week, the third week, right? These are where we can even get into how SOPs help you even potentially track some KPIs of, is this person that's coming onto your team ready to go based on this parameter, and this parameter? Did we do all the checkpoints in the SOP? It helps keep me and Jay accountable, and it also helps keep a standardized process across the board in order to make sure that, yes, our first VA, her name is Ryan, onboarded, and she was trained tremendously well. And right, our second VA, Eliza, making sure that she's going to be at the same place Ryan is, right? And obviously a shorter period of time, and making sure that me and Jay are not only doing right by us and our business, but by the VA or by the person that we're hiring, so that they're just as successful as we'd hope them to be.
Yeah. So when we create SOPs, and I'm just going to keep going, here are 3 actionable things you can do when you create your SOPs, and that's have these components, right? So the first one is, what is the purpose of this SOP? You don't want to do a long drawn out one, right? With your whole entire process. Think about who's going to be completing the task, whose role that is. So keep that in mind. The second,
sorry,
go ahead.
And the purpose of the purpose, that was a little bit of a tongue twister, is to make sure that when somebody sees that SOP and they open up that file, they know, okay, this is exactly the one that I need to be looking at.
Mm-hmm. And the second is prerequisites. So if there is maybe a system that they need access to, what's that prerequisite that they need? If it's another SOP, right, another smaller SOP that they need to make sure that is done before they complete theirs, that is in there. And then third, lastly, which is my absolute favorite, is definitions. We hired our VAs with absolutely no background in real estate whatsoever. Definitions was something that really they needed in order to know, okay, what does this mean? What is an HOA? What is a mortgage? To you and me, we're in the industry, those are just common knowledge, right? But in reality, to everyone else who is not in the industry, they don't know what that is. And making it readily accessible to them to know what it is really, really important. So just remember, purpose, prerequisites, and definitions. If there's 3 that are an absolute must in your SOP, it's those.
Yep. And now kind of moving on to how they help us in our business. We did touch upon this just about 30 seconds ago, but they really help me and Jay as the CEO and COO to make sure that all the moving parts are going to be reviewed at all points. Mm-hmm. It helps keep unorganized people, how are you, organized, and it keeps me accountable. Not only me, but there's other people in the business too that helps keep accountable, right? And it also takes the human error off of the person who's doing the task at hand, right? And it gives them a blueprint for them to follow, such as new hires. If a new hire misses a point or misses something up front that can be detrimental, it is not their fault. It's your fault as the business owner for not giving them the tools that they need and not giving them the actionable steps and or your process that you want them to see. People do not read minds. You have to lay it out for them.
Let's give an example. So say you have a sales team. Doesn't even have to be related to real estate. Say a sales team, right? And they need to hit numbers and they're not hitting numbers. Is that your process that's hindering them? Is it they need more training? Is it there's more leads? That we need more leads. We don't have enough leads for them to tackle down and sell stuff to. So just understand that SOPs aid the fact that you can see those things from a higher level. What's going on here? Why are we falling short, or why are we falling behind? Where is the break at, right? So essentially, SOPs have saved us time and obviously training. Back and forth communication is not a thing, right? It's clear cut expectations. Here's what you got to do. It's all laid out. And if there are questions when you start off and you hand it to someone else, and I do not suggest that you just hand it off to someone, you yourself walk through it before giving it to them. They may have additional questions that you may not think about, right? And that's okay. That's where you tweak an SOP. It is always growing.
And one thing I want to say is that yes, SOPs can help document your process. They can help onboarding and training. They can help with any part of any business, right? Every mechanic shop, the post office, whoever it may be, they all have a standardized process that they have to follow. But it's not just here's this process, take it, figure it out, and do it. No. You need to sit there, explain it to them. You need to help walk them through it, make sure that you're there as the support, but you're not there as the knowledge process that you're verbally telling them that's going to go in one ear and out the other. This piece of paper is the focal point that we all go off of, and we are there as the support mechanism for that person or for whoever it is that we're going to be delegating something to.
And like Mike previously mentioned, is we buy all over the state of Pennsylvania. And to keep track of all those requirements needed is tough. So as long as we have an SOP and our employee has them, we know that these are points that are getting hit, and we don't have to sit there and say, hey, this is in this county, we need to make sure we do a dye test. This is in this county, we need to make sure we do a sewer inspection, whatever that looks like. It is just already there, laid out. We did it once, we can do it again over and over.
Absolutely. Now, last but not least, here's some do's and do nots when doing SOPs. For one, I'm going to let you take it off.
So I mentioned this previously slightly, is do not make one big SOP. This is the biggest mistake I've seen happen time and time again, where it's, from the time that I get the house under contract until I put a tenant in there, there's the whole thing. Break it up. Break it up by, how you're listing it on Airbnb, how you're listing it on Furnish Finder, how you're listing it on Zillow. Those are all SOPs that should be broken down so that when the property manager is going to do these tasks, list it for you to get a tenant, they know, okay, I have to list it here, here, and here. That's the checklist, and these are the SOPs for each one. Second big one that I see that people are like, okay, SOP, let me just do a big, long 1-hour video on how to do it. No. What if the process changes? What if the technology updates? Now you have to redo the hour video long just because you decided to do a video and not document it. My suggestion here is do smaller videos of 30 seconds to a minute so that if you have to redo it because it looks different or the system changed, you can, and it's relatively quick, right?
Exactly. Another thing, too, is incorporate transition points from one person to the next, right? So these are some of the do's, right? So when in terms of a transition point, basically making sure, and again, I'll let you kind of fill in the gaps here. But basically, when you're doing a transition point, making sure that it explains okay from, say, acquisitions to transaction coordinator, from transaction coordinator to dispositions. Just like Jay said, that's the reason that you do not want to do one long SOP, is because there may be different people for different sectors or for different checkpoints throughout that process.
So I'll give you an example. We have our closers close the deal. They write up the contract based on what they've negotiated. Then, once that contract comes in, right, our VAs have the ability to go into our team email. They know that as soon as they see that signed document, it triggers them, transition period, to create a folder, a standardized folders within our folder system for this new deal, right? And then once they do that, they also create in our project management system for the transaction coordinator the checklist of, hey, this, and this has been done. Now it's in your plate and you have to do X, Y, and Z, right? And they're all trained to, hey, this person passed it on. Let me pick up the plate and run with it. And then the next person put down the plate, pick up the plate, and run with it, right? That's exactly what you want. You don't want back and forth asking questions. It's all easy, smooth. And of course, there's going to be one-off questions because no scenario is the same. But the base process is standardized, right? You're going to do trial and error with your process before you document it. Like I said, it's always going to be evolving, so that's okay. But one thing I will say, do not hire and update the process at the same time. You are creating a recipe for chaos. Changing your process and then hiring someone and telling them the new process without you being comfortable and confident with it, no. You need to be comfortable and confident with your process before handing it off to someone. You're well versed in it, and then you can oversee them as the CEO, as the COO, right?
Absolutely. I think Jay pretty much nailed that one to the T. Before we end the video, we're going to give you guys some actionable steps, right? This is a huge daunting task. For somebody like me, this seems extremely overwhelming, where with Jay, it does come very natural to her because she's just a very organized person by nature, right? So what are some actionable steps that you guys can do in order to start to take the necessary steps to get this implemented?
Number one.
One would be to download the free SOP template. We'll put the link in the description below. The second would be make a list of what you'd like to hire out first, right? So what are the most low-lying tasks that you have? Admin tasks, sending emails, doing the basic things that could easily be transitioned to somebody else. Write those down, jot them down on a piece of paper, and then really dissect them. And then from there, start by basically mapping out your blueprint and your checkpoints for those positions that you have just written down. So when you send an email for something, what does that process look like? Why are you sending that email? What triggers that? And then basically go down the list from there.
Mm-hmm. Points that you're going to be overseeing them, making sure that they get it done, one, in a timely manner, and two, correctly. So again, that was one, download our free SOP template. Two, make a list of what are those tasks that you no longer want to do or just are low-lying and not income producing for you. And three, start creating your blueprint of the checkpoints that you would want to see when someone else is doing your process.
Absolutely. So with that being said, guys, thanks for tuning in again with us. You'll see us next week. We always appreciate all the support. Please like and subscribe and comment if you loved the video. Like we said, below in the description are some free resources. Check them out. Let us know, and we'll go from there.
We'll see you next week. Bye, guys.
Have a good one.